Hey guys, get ready to witness a groundbreaking episode of the Chamber Guys Global Business Innovators series. I'm your host, Francis Michael, and today we are setting the stage for a deep dive into the forefront of artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the seismic shifts in emerging technologies. Leading the charge is none other than the indomitable Miss Dominique Rose Van-Winther, the founder and COO of the Blockchain and Crypto Association of Singapore and the managing director of the Hoffman Agency's Asia Pacific operations. Dominique's career is a testament to her unmatched expertise and visionary leadership in the tech and communications industry. With a track record spanning over 2 decades at the helm of global marketing and communications, including pivotal roles within IPG, McCann World Group, and WPP, she has been consistent at the cutting edge, navigating the complex interplay between technology and strategic communication. Her foresight and early advocacy of the blockchain and cryptocurrency since 2013 have marked her as a trailblazer in the tech revolution. Dominique's acute strategic insights and unwavering commitment to the innovation have fueled the ascent of countless tech ventures, from startups like Dayaway and Cantor Space to giants within the blockchain and AI spheres. Under her leadership, the Hoffman Agency has become a beacon of excellence, guiding brands through the digital age with unparalleled expertise and innovative strategies. But Dominique's influence extends far beyond her executive roles. As a thought leader, she has been instrumental in shaping the discourse on AI's integration into global communications, advocating for ethical AI development, and envisioning the future of work in blockchain and AI-driven world. Her contributions as an investor and advisor to groundbreaking ventures have not only demonstrated her skin in the game approach, but have also solidified her reputation as an unbeatable force in the industry. As we embark on today's journey with Dominique, we'll explore the depths of her expertise across AI, blockchain, and the digital transformation of businesses. Her insights promise to illuminate the path for emerging technologies, reshaping our understanding of the possibilities that lie ahead. Prepare to be inspired by a leader whose contributions are not just shaping the present, but are also defining the future of technology and business. Dominique, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. Appreciate being here today. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you. We have heard a lot about you, but maybe our viewers would like to know a little bit about you as well. Could you just highlight a few points that you want to?
Yeah, well, you already gave a very detailed introduction of my background. What I would say is I'm a tech girl at heart from the very beginning of my career. I've come up through marketing and communications, but predominantly working on technology clients, and then working also within agencies in order to execute on bringing technology into the firm, optimizing, focusing on productivity, etc. About 1.5 years ago, I founded my own AI consultancy, right about at the peak of when this entire new technology was launched with LLMs. If I may say so, fantastic timing, and have been focused very much on AI these last couple of years. But before that, in 2013, got very much into blockchain and crypto. Again, very much a leader in the space, early days, based out of initially Singapore, and doing not only investment and trading, which obviously is a part that a lot of people have a window on, but more interestingly enough, on a lot of blockchain projects, going really into technology at the core and the type of impact that blockchain technology can bring. So over the course of my career, I've been very much involved in a lot of different technologies as they kind of find roots and start to grow, and also explaining new technologies that perhaps the world isn't always ready for when we first start speaking about them.
Thank you so much for that. Now, let's dive right into integrating AI into global communication. Dominique, with your vast experience at the Hoffman Agency, could you share how AI is set to change the game in global communications, and what exciting transformations should businesses anticipate?
Yeah, well, it's almost more difficult to name what it's not going to change in communications. If we just look at where the innovation is at the moment with AI, AI has been around since the 50s. There isn't a massive amount of new technology across the entire space. It's been a slow evolution. What really changed a little bit over a year ago was with LLM technology, which in essence means that we can communicate, an average person, not a programmer, can communicate with computers. That's in essence the summary of all of the innovation that we're seeing with LLMs. The ability of people who aren't working as professionals in the space to be able to work with computers. That has led to unprecedented technology and investment into the space. But it's also meant that the conversation can exit out of the IT department or CTOs. It means that even normal people can start to talk about bringing that in. It's also meant that with generative AI and everything that's being developed there, you can have a lot more consumer applications. So everything from writing, and I'll talk about that in a moment in terms of communications, but also in terms of visuals, in terms of translations. I mean, the impact really is for everyone in the sector. It's not just IT, it's not just business. So to give you an example, I mean, we can all talk about the automation of routine tasks. Most of that existed previously, but in order to program AI or develop up some sort of a solution, you had to have machine learning experts, you had to have data analysts, et cetera. Now you have an ability to be able to have regular people asking computers in order to solve maybe not as complex of problems. There are limitations to this sort of technology at the moment, but start to see and understand and have a window on how important and influential this technology can be. The other piece of it that I find to be very interesting is breaking down language barriers. We're working already with several technologies that can do automated translation, that can take any content throughout the world and translate it very quickly into any other language automatically and at a very, very high quality. You're looking at something that a couple of years ago wasn't very accurate and now is incredibly useful. But what to me, in terms of communication, that changes is now you can have avatars. We create AI avatars that can now speak to people, that can start to communicate not only in a language that people understand, but with a face that people understand, with emotion, with movement, with understanding, with conviction, that now you can start to educate, for example, people that are in markets that previously didn't have access to such content. I mean, the amount of impact that we've seen in the communication sector, there's been nothing even close to this in terms of innovation. And I just find it to be a very, very exciting time. In terms of our agency, obviously, there's all sorts of things in terms of AI-powered content creation, data-driven insights, automated personalized campaigns. So for example, the trend now is going away from communicating to everyone en masse, but how can you hyper-target specific audiences? So for example, we have an offering where we can start to hyper target people from a sales perspective or individual messages, or be able to communicate with small groups of people, but everything automated so that everyone feels this direct impact. And the last piece is, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the technologies in the space of AI now that use LLM technologies, along with almost customer service or sales bots, things like that. Very fascinating stuff. I mean, if you think about it right now, if you call your bank and you say, gosh, like, I need some sort of a problem solved. And it says, press 1 for the teller, press 2 for the automated system. Now you tell me one person who hits 2 right now. No one, right? Because AI of the past hasn't been able to understand actually what we want. But the AI of the future, you're gonna be like, give me 2. It'll be so much faster. In fact, if you saw with Klarna, some of the news that came out just about 2 weeks ago, I guess, they're replacing their entire customer service team, over 700 people, with AI and with chatbots. Wow. And guess what? The entire response of customers has been a massive improvement and lots of success stories coming out of it. In addition, previously it used to take 11 minutes to solve a problem. On average now, 2. Same problem. Also, the repetitive requests and inquiries that you normally get from somebody having to call back and say, it didn't work, cut in half. I mean, these are the types of impacts that for businesses, for Klarna, for example, I think they shaved $40 million off their, were able to capture $40 million more of profit But more importantly, the customer experience is still there, which is previously not what you had from an AI experience, where you couldn't actually get AI or computers to understand you and solve whatever problem that you have. So it's a very exciting space in terms of communications.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you 100% of what you just said, because, when you call a bank or when you call most major big companies or MNCs, you get a machine. And I've gone through that so many times. And it gets frustrating, and it's so much better now. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think honestly, it's probably there's not that much of that technology that's been implemented right now, but I think over the
Hmm.
next 6, 12, 18 months, you'll see more and more of it. I think it'll start probably a lot more in the United States and then start to cascade out. And with a lot of things, it'll start with startups. It'll start with smaller companies that are a lot more edgy, that are faster, that are more agile and ready to take up new technology in order to capture the cost savings. Whereas the larger companies are more likely to be a little bit more conservative, having kind of beta programs or incubators where they're experimenting. Klarna was a fantastic example of just going for it. And now there's a lot of calls actually for people asking them to open source it because their product has nothing to do with building out the IT for customer service. But there's a cry for being able to share such a wonderful technology with everyone else. God knows we all need better customer service bots, right? So
Yes, we do.
hopefully they'll reply to the cry for everyone's help and help out all of the banks and other companies that are in need of customer service.
Right. You've been a blockchain advocate since 2013, about 11 years. Looking back, what have been the most significant shifts in blockchain technology, and what common traps should companies avoid as they explore blockchain solutions?
Yeah, well, I would probably bucket that into two different spaces. One is for
Hmm.
big corporates that are looking
Right.
how they can bring technology into their organization and come up with a technology strategy on why to use it. I think in those cases, larger corporates, they tend to be more strategic and thoughtful about how they can use the technology. In that sense, I think the movement has been good. It's maybe been a relatively slow process and progress. But nonetheless, we're starting to see anyway benefits across any sector across the world. The interesting space that has more impacted, I think, the reputation in the space was all of these startups and token projects and everything that became so pervasive and everywhere. And
Hmm.
I think that's where I would touch upon where the common traps are, is not every company, not every task, not every application exists to apply blockchain technology. If it's trendy and cool, people love to incorporate it because they feel like they can get VC funding out of it or investors, or it sounds cool or whatnot. But I think in so many years in this space, I've just seen time after time where you're applying blockchain technology when in reality, a simple database will do. The
Right.
decentralization process of any project or business or ecosystem, it's a phenomenal technology. And it should be life-changing, world-changing, society-changing. But that being said, it doesn't apply to absolutely everything. What I think is lacking sometimes is a little bit more of those projects that are so groundbreaking and just absolutely clear at their core, where you think, wow, like was such a lovely and wonderful example of decentralization. I'll give you an example. I was recently speaking with a project that develops business cases and sorry, not business, but societal maps on how you can go and create your own society, your own city. And they have everything that is, how you can build your own school, how you can build almost a utopian idyllic community and have everything where it's working sustainably. Really fascinating project. And they said it doesn't make sense to build all of this idyllic community and society, and then everything is being paid for in US dollar or whatever local currency, because actually you're building a bit of a bubble. It's a very unique and very interesting project, but you're like, it doesn't make sense to then link yourself to something else if actually you're building something that is completely freestanding. Another one that
Right.
I have talked about for a long time is one called Alpha Per Se, which is investment into space venture. Now, for
Mhm.
venture and financing to go into space, the lead time for those investments and the length of time for actually any return on that capital is normally too long for a regular investor. And so they've done tokenization of those assets in order to be able to break it up and allow people to have access to it and then get information more about space and venture and get more involved, which is again activating an interesting new segment where people can kind of just get excited about the space. I mean, there's so many examples out there of lovely work and projects, and obviously the big corporates have figured it out in terms of whether it's supply chain or banking or fraud prevention or identity verification, et cetera. Lots of exciting stuff. But myself, I very often get more excited about some of the very aspirational or inspirational blockchain projects that are a little bit more small, but potentially, hopefully, we'll reap the benefits from in the next 5 to 10 years.
I'm sure you will. Now, I'm curious, Dominic, how do you see blockchain further revolutionizing international trade? Are there specific areas where businesses can really leverage blockchain to leapfrog ahead?
Yeah, well, I think one of the big challenges to international trade is just the ability to trust international kind of trade agreements or contracts or whatnot. So I think smart contracts is the most fundamental application and use case that practically blockchain was built for it. And it's one of the challenges that many companies do face. I have a lot of people in my ecosystem that work in commodity trading, for example. And that is one of the more difficult businesses in order to be able to track where specific commodities came from, verification at each stage and at each port, and have a certain element of trust and enforcement of those sorts of agreements. And those sorts of use cases, I think, are very fundamental and very interesting for international business. I think international bank transfers or money transfers, actually the opposite, not bank transfers, are to me, just in terms of international trade and business, again, absolutely at the core of blockchain technology and really helping businesses to start to think about it differently. Everything from trade documentation, supply chain, especially important right now to something that you had mentioned, which is very much in the ESG and sustainability space, being able to
Right.
track where your core products came from, have tamper-proof records of where it moved from, and have verification of that information, I think is going to be incredibly important in the future. We see a lot of projects that are around carbonization, for example, and being able to verify that indeed, you have captured these or that carbon credits, et cetera, like where do they come from? Is that actually serving the purpose that you want it to? So lots of interesting projects also in that space that I think are going to be even more impactful in the sustainability space and international trade as a lot of this technology gets integrated into the global players that exist. A lot of that innovation can't happen from startups because by definition, that sort of huge international trade is led by multinationals. And the hope is as they start to continue to adopt this technology and embed it in, that then it opens up more and more opportunities for new players to come into the space and innovate.
Right. Now, let's talk about cryptocurrencies going mainstream. What hurdles are we facing, do you think, towards broader acceptance? And for businesses eager to dive in, how can they best prepare for this integration?
Yeah, well, look, I think the biggest thing in terms of cryptocurrencies going mainstream happened earlier this year with the ETFs. We're seeing an absolute boom in the space. I personally am very excited after a little bit of a crypto winter. We've been through quite a few of them. So you stop attaching a lot of value to it. You only lose when you sell, so to say. But here we want to separate really the major tokens with, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum, Ripple, et cetera, from kind of a lot more of the token projects that exist, because those are the technologies that maybe you might use an underlying technology and the token is a representation of that. With the major cryptocurrencies, I think the biggest change has just happened in terms of investment. You're seeing institutional money through these ETFs now enter the space, and that has been very much reflected by the price in Bitcoin, but then also the cascade of that out into other projects by definition, because it's an easy investment and more money in the space means it has a ripple effect to the entire cryptocurrency market. The interesting piece is that as you start to have broader adoption of ETFs, and there's already conversation about now an Ethereum potential ETF expanding out, we're going to see that more and more people start to go into it. Obviously, the fact that it's been going up so much ever since their launch, this morning, I think the price of Bitcoin per coin is somewhere around 73 or 72,000. I mean, that's just a phenomenal increase if you compare it to any other trade that you could have made this year. And because of that growth, you're going to see more and more people start to allocate. You don't have to allocate 50, 100% of your portfolio. Allocate a small amount to the ETFs. We're going to look at a bull market that's going to last 2 to 3 years. The more interesting thing is when people start to invest in the ETFs, you get to a certain stability. And that is very interesting because the insti money is not going to just exit. It's going to stay in, and you're going to have a lot more retail investors that are also investing into the space. The challenge with cryptocurrencies that used to exist was the volatility, that it was going up and down because it was people were so price sensitive to when it started to turn into a crypto winter, everyone just cash out and run. But now you're going to see a lot more stability. I mean, it's possible that we'll have a bull run over several years. I think for businesses that are interested in getting involved, that's probably a little bit either from the investment perspective, which I won't touch because that's a whole other topic of conversation. But on the business side, if you're looking at some sort of a token project or if you're looking to get involved, just make sure that that's the actual right technology for you. There's a lot of things that you can do in order to raise capital where it doesn't always make sense to have a token model. So it's more about just making sure that it's not just a reason to go into the space just because it's hot, but that logically it makes sense over the longer term.
Thanks for that. I've always wondered about Bitcoin. I always wanted to invest, but never did. We're always wondering when is the right time to go in. And, we've heard any time is the right time.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like when was the best time to plant a tree? It's either 20 years ago or today, right? It's never really a bad time, and you'll only lose money when to actually cash out. My feeling is, again, it's a multi-year bull run. It is still very early days. And so, as an investment, don't take this as investment advice, but, we're looking at one of the biggest bull markets that you can be entering. And, a couple of years ago, people will be looking back and again saying, oh gosh, I wish I would have bought. And probably the bull market will still be continuing even back then. There's still extremely small amount of people that have actually invested in this. And so the fact that it's growing and reaching such headlines, it still means that it'll be a couple of years before it is pervasive, that everyone has a bit of their portfolio, a little bit of an investment in it.
What can you say about the, I'm not sure if it's past, but I don't hear about it anymore, the NFT trend?
It's gone a little bit quiet. I think it was a bit overhyped. The main problem is there were so many different projects and so much excitement in the space, but a lot of it didn't have use cases. So it was, some of it, for example, was you can have an NFT that's pretty much your ticket to get into a community or something that existed beyond. So, for example, we work very much with Day Away, a fantastic community. And in essence, the NFT is your ticket and your entry into this community that gives you all sorts of travel deals and hotel deals, etc. That's a use case. That's a way where you can verify someone's identity. They can purchase it, they can trade it. It's not centralized, it's very transparent, etc. But you had a huge amount of people that were just producing artwork, and it was very much like a bubble. Let's just drive up the price of that artwork into infinity. And then, of course, it had to pop. So if you don't have a substantial business underlying fundamental, then by definition, a lot of this should pop. I mean, it's a new segment, and I think we forget about that. Banking in, the 20s was also the wild, wild west. It's been around for a lot longer. But if you just look on history, anything that is not as regulated, that isn't as clear and transparent, and that's just new, is likely to attract a lot more early adopters and also people that don't have everyone's best interest at heart.
Right. Thanks. Now, let's explore AI's transformative power in business. With Final Upgrade AI, you're pushing boundaries. Can you give us an example of how AI is currently tackling big business challenges and which sectors should be paying close attention?
Oh gosh, it's such a difficult question because AI is impacting everything.
Right.
Here we're based out in Asia at the moment, and I think there isn't a CEO or C-suite that isn't trying to figure out what they need to do. And there's
Hmm.
one side, which is the grassroots side, which is people craving and wanting to use this technology and not necessarily knowing how to or feeling very overwhelmed. That's a piece that I tackle, which is around education of whether it's C-suite or employees or education programs to understand AI because people are just so overwhelmed, they don't know where to start. On LinkedIn, you see all of these graphs of like these 50 different logos and all of these different tools that you can see in AI. Who has time to check out one of them? Well, what do you think that those graphs do to the psyche? It's a massive mental health issue. So in reality, what big business needs to tackle is two ends. First, what are the AI technologies that they're bringing into their business because that is their core business and that's where they
Hmm.
need to innovate. And then you have an even more substantial piece, which is how do you bring everyone along for this ride? Because it's unprecedented that you would actually have so many of your employees out of their own pocket paying $20 a month for a product and not billing it back to the company and not telling their boss about it. Give me one example of any product that any employee would do that for. And yet you have so many people that are using this and not wanting to share with their boss. And then on the other side, you have and I would add, and a lot of people that don't know how to properly use it, that don't know what information you should and shouldn't be using it in. I have an entire theory I adopted from AWS, which is we should be building guardrails, not gates, to stop people from using that technology. We need to educate them. But the education right now is really what's sorely lacking because the biggest innovation that you have in terms of bringing AI into your company, it's all about adoption. It's all about people using it in their daily process, optimizing it. I mean, I come from a communications perspective. So there has been no innovation in our space that is even close to this sort of change. And if you look at front office, back office, customer service, finance, analyst work, etc., all of this is just ripe for the innovation. And all of the technology will be there in the next 6-12 months in order to revolutionize things. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is you're going to, in essence, go into a department where you have 40 analysts and say, hey, guys, who's been using AI? And 4 hands go up and you go, you guys
Ugh,
4 can remain seated. Everyone else has just been laid off because you don't
wow.
need 40 people in order to
Right.
have them in the business doing business analysis. I was speaking not too long ago to a project that was in India that were
Hmm.
saying, gosh, we're going to build out an entire team of all of these data analysts. Like it's so inexpensive in India. So we can have huge teams of them and they're going to support what is a global business. And I said, your data analysts are not going to be useful. Like a lot of this data and analysis, I don't know if you've tried using some of the later technologies or earlier technologies with ChatGPT or Claude, where you can upload Excel documents, you can upload CVS files and just
Yeah.
ask it questions. And that's a very, very elementary. It's gone downhill from there, by the way, because I think the technology just couldn't keep up with the demand that's coming into the space, but the technology is getting there. On the other hand, in terms of a kind of the application, I think the biggest change that people are going to see is the ability to tap into their own data. So one thing that you should know is most companies, their data is structured incorrectly. So all they have is databases that are sitting in various places. And those don't really help you to understand and find the nuggets of what you should be understanding about your business. What are some of the trends? How can you make decisions within your business? So the first thing a business actually has to do is go and restructure all of their data into something
Hmm.
like graph databases, which is a whole other segment of the space that is taking off in the AI space. Like once you get that going, then you can start to have business application for you within a business. And then, of course, there's the other side, which is a lot more kind of consumer oriented. Like you think about what sorts of businesses can AI put out of business? So everything I mentioned about Klarna with customer service, it's going to be decimated. It's not even going to be decimated. Like only 10% of people will probably remain. Those will be the issues that are escalated. Massive shift. And then on the healthcare side, for example, we're pretty far off from a regulatory perspective for having really AI being able to make medical decisions. But the same thing with lawyers. Regulation stands in the way, and a certain aura of overcaution or potentially exactly precise caution. But if you look at, for example, the legal industry or healthcare, these are industries that literally have a huge knowledge base, and there's an entire industry of people whose job is just to read that information. So you have a lawyer whose sole job is to understand the law and to translate it to everybody else who hasn't figured it out and studied it. Same with doctors. They're reading complex data. They're communicating that to a human being. I would argue that computers would be a lot better at doing that, a lot better at understanding the trends, a lot faster, etc. And when you start to understand that sort of a paradigm shift, we're still ages away. I know that doctors are not going to be replaced with AI, but doctors using AI in order to make decisions, things like that are going to be very, very interesting in the space.
Thanks, Dominique. Well, folks, it's time for a commercial break. When we come back, we will find out more about which traditional industries are facing disruption by AI and what lies ahead for the workforce of the future. Stay with us.